Hello and welcome back to the Signal Over Noise podcast with me, Owen Evans, and
Take two, Sam, Owen's brother.
good. Well, here we are with the short, sharp podcast that aims to give you the tools to figure out what matters to you, what's worthy of your time and effort, and how to get it done. Today's episode is Why is Britain so unhappy? And why are all the big, important cultural and commerce leading businesses American? And lastly, how do we get more stuff done and feel better about it? We'll give you 5 simple steps to getting and staying agentic at the end of this video, so let's crack on with that. Now, these problems. Britain's feeling downbeat and seemingly being incapable of producing any new, innovative, world-leading enterprises are both complex and multifactorial problems. But I'm going to pitch one common thread that binds the two, and if we can sever the knot, or perhaps more aptly, cut the invisible strings, then we stand a good chance of solving both, at least on a personal level. A big issue here is agency, or being agentic, which is to have the independent capacity and power to act on your own will. In today's podcast, we're going to first demonstrate the scale of the problem of low agency in the UK, then talk about the drivers of it, then we'll explore general and specific principles for finding local solutions to this big issue. But first, why should you care? Well, we reckon, and a decent chunk of evidence agrees, that becoming more agentic stands a reasonable chance of helping you feel happier and living a more satisfying life. Why? Because we humans understand the world through stories. We relate to and are captivated by human endeavor, suffering, and thriving, and we all have a narrative or story of our life with ourselves as the hero at the center. Good stories, and more importantly, good heroes, do stuff. When was the last time you picked up a good book or watched a good Netflix series in which the main characters refrained from doing anything important? Can you recall the last time you cheered for a character who refrained from doing anything that they felt was morally important to them or meaningful? The point is, for the hero to be in any way likable, they must try, and better still, they must do. Now, in your story, you're the hero. The casting committee decided that the day you were born. If you make the main character in your life story more likable by doing important stuff, you'll like that character more. You'll enjoy their company, maybe want to buy them a drink or go for a walk with them and hear about all the interesting stuff they've been up to and are doing now. And guess what? That character's you. Being agentic, doing things, especially those which align with your values, will improve your foundational relationship in this world, the one with yourself. So that covers off on why agency matters for happiness. Do meaningful stuff. Become more worthy of your own interest, attention, and applause. Like yourself more, treat yourself better, and loop it. That's what I'd call a plausible mechanism of action relating to agency, or the sense that one can act on their own beliefs and values to live the life they deem meaningful, which will lead to increased happiness and life satisfaction. Before we move on to the economic benefits of being high agency and why all the needle-moving tech companies of the 21st century aren't in Britain or Europe, but the US, let's cover off on the data to back up what I've just said. We'll start big before getting specific. According to the polling company Gallup's 2025 World Happiness Report, the UK is the 23rd best nation to have a happy life. Global happiness index tables are an annual occurrence, and they usually spit out countries like Norway, Finland, Sweden, Switzerland, and New Zealand at the top. All wealthy developed countries with strong rule of law, representative democracies, and big to very big social welfare systems. But those things are also true of the UK, France, and Spain. So what else is going on? Well, the UK comes 35th when survey participants are asked the only question on the survey about autonomy. Are you free to make your own choices about your life? Given that we live in a secular democracy with a massive GDP on a global scale, this is somewhat surprising. And an important side note is that the UK's overall score in this survey has fallen since 2012, and we've fallen from being just outside the top 10 to 23rd in that time. So perhaps part of the reason everyone's feeling so glum is maybe simply to do with our trajectory. It's still a good country to live a happy and satisfying life. Indeed, the pollsters reckon there are 170-odd worse ones, but the feeling of a downward slide is apparent, and so too is a sense that we are not the authors or lead actors in our own story. Now, the researchers did mention one caveat on a national level, which is this: a high agency individual in an absolute straitjacket of a conformist society will likely feel super frustrated by this, leading to negative life satisfaction and happiness outcomes. But overall, and on small-scale evidence, personal autonomy correlates directly with improved happiness and life satisfaction, and personal autonomy drives other behaviors, such as eating well, exercising regularly, and spending time outdoors, that also lead to greater happiness and life satisfaction. Now, let's talk about the potential economic benefits at the individual level. If you're listening to this in the UK, the data suggests that you live in something of an agency desert. Life happens to people around you, not for or because of them. This makes them unlikely to act decisively. You can stand head and shoulders above these people in job interviews or have outsized competitive advantage in entrepreneurship by building a habit and back catalogue of doing things. In Silicon Valley, which is the high agency epicenter of the world and the home of almost all the important culture and capital shifting businesses founded this millennium, being high agency is demanded simply to get to the start line, in much the same way that Lance Armstrong, when he defended himself by telling the world what we already know, that all pro endurance cyclists in the 1990s were juicing up on performance enhancing drugs. All Silicon Valley startups know how to look for high agency and select for it. Out there, it's a minimum entry requirement. In the UK, it's still a massively potent performance-enhancing drug that gets you several steps ahead. A little more on the scale of the problems. Last week, I listened to 2 podcasts on the same drive. This Is Money were covering off on retirement destinations. They found that the UK scored really good on longevity, largesse of pensions, transport, and accessibility. Basically all the material considerations of retirement, but absolutely sucked on happiness. Then I listened to a smaller podcast called The Ruffian, where they interviewed a James Kanagasorian, chief research officer at a polling company called Focal Data, who laid out his findings that the UK, other than millennials, is becoming progressively less agentic, with fewer and fewer people answering yes to questions such as, do you feel able to pursue life on your own terms? Which corresponds to and correlates with more and more people feeling unhappy or stuck in our present situation, which historical context is something in the order of better than perhaps 99.5% of all humans to have ever lived and died. If you're listening to this podcast in modern Britain, well, we've never lived so long, had such great free or accessible education and information or career optionality, except maybe, compared to our nearest forebears. Our lives are just immeasurably wealthier and easier than those of the rest of our forebears. Yet people mostly feel really hard done by. We've never had a more generous welfare state, yet people are pissed that they aren't getting what they deserve. What's all this about? Well, I think it's largely to do with the amount of time we spend wallowing in the gap between what is possible, what others have, and what we have achieved and what we have. It may also have something to do with learned helplessness. The point is that our problem of unhappiness is detached from the provision of material riches. If you're listening to this on your smartphone, you have more knowledge than all the great libraries of history combined available for free in your pocket. You've also got more computing power available to you than the team that landed men on the moon. In fact, seeing as nobody's been back for 50 years, you've got more computational power than the first and last groups combined. So what's the problem? A sense we should have utilized this to do even bigger, better things. And for the most part, we haven't. What's the cure? Let's crack into that. First, the general, and then the specific. What do you reckon, Sam? You want to jump in?
Yeah, so I guess in a sense, you touch on the phrase "letting life happen to you," and frankly, I'm feeling hopeless. And was it learned hopelessness? I think was the phrase you used. So a real example that I think will apply to a lot of people. I know it applies to me, and it applies to a bunch of my friends. Is in the UK, you're told, okay, go to school, get some A levels, or I think they're still called that. God, I feel old. Go to university, get a graduate job, and then I guess what's next? There isn't really the answer to that question. You're kind of told you got a job, you're done. So for me, really personally, I went off and I did this. I got a good job, but I absolutely hated it. I remember every day I had 3 hours of commuting, 1.5 hours each way. And I'd go to a job I absolutely hated, doing all the rubbish tasks, had no respect from the client as a consultancy role. I had a very tedious and stressful working day, and ultimately I was pretty poorly paid. So, honestly, I just remember feeling like, is this it? Like, I've got 60 years ahead of me. Is this what life is? If so, it's pretty rubbish. And of course, then you're looking at social media, flicking through Instagram on the way there, and you're thinking, wow, like I've really missed something here, haven't I? Which is really sad, actually. But I'm also just going to do a very quick trigger warning as well. Like, get to the point really with it where you're feeling so hopeless that, like, I always feel like numb, like to be walking around almost like a dead man walking, which is horrific. And I'm sure this is true for a lot of people on their day jobs. Particularly, I think about people who go to the city every day. I have a couple of friends who would describe themselves as having golden handcuffs, who I know for sure absolutely hate their jobs, have and work really long hours, are on antidepressants, and so be it. But like the only real solve for this that at least worked for me was it's actually my girlfriend. She kind of gave me a big kick up the butt and said, "Look, you've always said you dislike moaners. Moaner to me is somebody who lets shit get to them and doesn't take action to address it. Someone who's bending over for life as opposed to bending life to their will." There we go. I don't want to steal your thunder a little bit here, but I'll just explain what worked for me as a way to kind of find what my right path was. Shall I go for it?
Yeah. So we'll get into those 5 steps to being and remaining agentic. After you've told us a bit more about the path that you took, I think that'd be quite insightful and helpful.
Yes, mate. So yeah, I was feeling incredibly hopeless and not really knowing what direction to go. It's all very well being told by someone, take some actions, but it can feel very overbearing and it's quite scary actually, particularly when you've been programmed your whole life, like I say, in the Western world, get a good job and that's that. So I did something called an ikigai, which is a Japanese concept. It roughly translates to a reason for being. So if imagine a Venn diagram with 2 circles that intersect. Imagine you're putting 2 further circles on there. And in those 4 quadrants, you're going to put the things that you love doing, the things that the world needs, the things that you can be paid for, and the things that you're good at. And in theory, and what worked for me was right in the middle of those quadrants will be what your life's purpose is. It's not a long exercise to do. I remember doing it at a park years ago. And what came out for me actually was the right job was for me to work in tech. So I got myself on a coding boot camp. And frankly, I've never looked back. I mean, I would also say, for full disclosure, it's not like life isn't a fairy tale. And I'm certainly not perfect. So I'd say I like rather than love my job. But liking your job is a heck of a lot more than most people have in this world. And I've had some really incredible times. And I know for sure I love the industry that I work in. It's fascinating, particularly with AI. And I think we will in the future talk a little bit more deeply about AI. But yeah, I would say the big shift was going from life feeling like it's happening to you to life happening for you, breaking out of the cycle of like your whole life is preordained and mapped out for you. Actually shifting the perspective from life happening to you to life happening for you. It's a reframing away from the victim mindset to one of empowerment and growth, and actually grabbing life and making yourself the hero of the story, making decisions about which direction you want to go in. It's all about like taking the power to act, choose, and shape your experience regardless of circumstances, which was really empowering. It restores a lot of like faith in yourself that you can go out and actually make life what you think you want it to be. But yeah, I think that's probably our life's, well, at least my life's purpose.
Yeah, so I just want to drill into that a bit. I think there's a couple of things that I want to ask about. One of which I think is that it sounds like your partner picked up that you had become the type of person that you would loathe to meet, and her reflecting that back to you allowed you perhaps to get that level of insight or introspection that you needed to change. So I guess my question there is, how would that have been different if you didn't already sort of want to be considered somebody agentic or want to be agentic?
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, I wasn't conscious of this fact, which I suspect is probably true for most people who answered no to the question of, do you feel like you, I forget exactly what the question was, but do you feel like you can control your...
My question essentially was, it seems like yours was a reflection that you wanted to be an agentic person and had sleepwalked into no longer being that. And the direction of travel whilst you were sleepwalking was into a job that made you numb, that you loathed, and you were having to perhaps act as somebody who didn't loathe that job every day at work. So whenever you got any sort of plaudits, which was very rarely, I think, at work, they went to the character you were playing each day, the role you're putting on during the daytime, 9 till 5, when you were wearing the suit because you had to, and not to you, your authentic self, who maybe wasn't really traveling with you to work and was trying to just check out and be anywhere else and was getting you to pull out the phone and watch videos and Instagram on the tube. My question, I guess, is can somebody who's in that period of crisis learn agency then if they've not already had those aspirations, desire, or understood the framework of what it is to be an agentic person? Do you think?
Um, I would assume yes is the answer, but I don't know actually. You'd have to be aware, wouldn't you, of it as a concept, like of taking life into your own hands. Like maybe going back to a couple of friends who don't have the luxury of having. Well, I suppose luxury is the wrong word because it's not an easy step to do. It's actually a huge and quite daunting thing to do. I do wonder if perhaps for those people it's quite hard to learn. We will be grateful for a long time that I was able to have a second person give me that perspective that actually it's time to do something about this.
Yeah.
Because you can feel trapped. Like the detail I missed out was that I'd signed a training agreement where I thought I'd have to pay back £10,000 for this course that the my ex employer had put me on. So you end up really feeling trapped, and you end up in this cycle of going down, just down and down. And then again, flicking onto Instagram and seeing how well everyone's doing. And geez, LinkedIn is just as bad because everyone's starting a new bloody job, aren't they? Or a new role, and they're all so excited about it. Sorry, I hate the phoniness of LinkedIn. I suspect you don't get that joy being a doctor of going on there.
No, because I guess essentially people are quite credentialist and they want to look at what's on your CV and what's not. So you don't have to really present yourself particularly well on LinkedIn. And yeah, there's not much kissing ass on there. Maybe there is. Maybe it's sort of going over my head, or it's just in a different direction. Maybe more hostile managerial roles. You promote yourself on there. But anyway, I think going back to my question, I'll give my attempted answer, and that is that it's easier to learn new things or get into good positive habits in the good times and continue them through the bad times than the other way around. But if you do find yourself in bad times and you find yourself listening to this or whatever it is and feeling numb, yeah, ask a trusted confidant what they would do. Look to your role models, near or far. They could be pretty far away, just people that you don't even have a relationship with, but you've seen them on one of these social media platforms. And then one step at a time, small steps to start with, whatever feels comfortable or just mildly nauseatingly uncomfortable, start stacking wins. Be agentic with small things at home and hobbies and in your free time. Stack the wins, reflect on how that made you feel. I like doing like a hot and a cold debrief after having done a thing. If you've been on social media for an hour, ask yourself immediately afterwards, was that time well spent? Did it make me feel good? Did I learn anything? And then ask yourself a day from now, yesterday when I spent that hour on the sofa scrolling social media, just ask the same questions again when you're a bit sort of colder and a bit more detached from it. And I think you can do the same things with these small agentic steps. If you make those small steps, ask yourself, was it time well spent? Did I get something out of it? Was it enjoyable? If it was, going outside the front door, putting your trainers on and going for a walk, when you feel numb and when those things feel hard to do, then hopefully it felt worth doing. And you can sort of start stacking wins and scale the size of them and the ambition.
What do you think about even like somewhat novel experiences? So, like, for example, I remember hearing this thing about like the speed at which you age or the rate at which your perception of time passes. So you should do novel things. So you have timestamps that say, okay, cool. Like yesterday I tried a new coffee shop. But what it will mean is in a week's time when you think, oh, what did I do last week? I did this. I went to this new coffee shop. I took a different route around the park than I normally take, and it felt different and novel. Like I wonder if there's also something to that from an agentic perspective, which is okay. Actually, like I'm not falling into the same habits all day, every day. I'm trying new things. I'm like it just like hangs something very different there, and it's like so trivial and like, and hopefully such a small step to actually take that. And it does actually, I can say genuinely, as someone who walked around the park the same way for like 6 months and then decided, do you know what? No, I'm gonna just totally go right where I used to normally go left. It felt peculiar and weird, and I'd like to say I tried to be agentic, generally speaking, but yeah, it was anyway. Just a thought. It's a very small and easy step you could possibly take. Is just try something a little bit different.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And then you might not be very good at that different thing, but it just tells you there are different routes. Your life is not Groundhog Day. You can break the cycle in lots of different ways, and you don't have to make a big break all in one go. And I think a good analogy would be thinking about, a goldfish lives its entire life in a bowl full of water, and it doesn't know that it's in a bowl full of water until it leaves the bowl. The issue with goldfishes is they would rely on the water. You take it out of the bowl, it's got to find some water, or it's gone. Us humans, we also live in these goldfish bowls, but they're not filled with water. We can step outside of them, get that alternative, different perspective simply by doing something a little bit different, basically meeting someone a little bit different, like talking with, an old friend from school who's gone and done something totally different than you and has their own set of upsides and downsides of the way they've gone. But the point is they've gone some other way and things are very different. I agree. I think that's a really good thing to think about.
Nice.
Shall we crack on with the 5
Do the
steps?
steps.
Cool. Yeah. Step 1, generally speaking, being more agentic is about doing things. It's about explaining the past, present, and future in the first person. If we make a habit of, I went to the shops and I bought a muffin and I didn't like the taste, so I won't buy that muffin again, instead of the shopkeeper made me overpay for a muffin that tasted bad, then we can train ourselves to value our own actions as a key determinant in what happens in our lives. We can call this narrative therapy if you want. Another angle is going back to our hero of our own story that we've spoken about earlier. Engaging stories involve our hero going on a journey without and within. By going places, learning skills, and trying new things, our hero learns about his or herself and grows on the inside too. Step 2. Be specific and define what you're doing. Journeys occur between A and B, and progress can be measured from A to B. You are at A. Before you start doing stuff, you must decide where B is. If you're a little underconfident, make B nearby. That's okay. It's better than okay. By getting to B, you build a piece of evidence that you're an agentic person capable of traveling from A to B. This B now becomes your new A, and you repeat the process. And as Alex Hormozy would say, you build a body of evidence that shows you are who you say you are. Why? Because competence fuels confidence and vice versa. Make your bed, brush your teeth, eat a healthy breakfast, and go for a 10-minute walk before work. It can be that simple to start with. Make a verbal or mental contract with yourself, fulfill it, and move on. Step 3. Identify as an agentic person. Now that you've built evidence that you can do the work and get from A to B, you've earned the right to consider yourself an agentic person. Just as someone who has dusted off their trainers and gone for a handful of runs can describe themselves as a runner. Why does this matter? Because agentic people do things. Runners, by identifying as such, are able to go running when conditions are too wet, too cold, or too dark for others. Doers are able to do things when the conditions aren't quite right too. But hold yourself accountable to guard against complacency and inaction. For this, I've got to use the example of our dad, who had avid squash player on his resume for 25 years after his last game of squash. Runners repeatedly run. Doers repeatedly do. If we make a trait or a pillar of identity out of doing, then we have motivation to uphold that pillar. Why? Because we're invested in being who we say we are. It makes us feel good. Step 4. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, just to point on identifying as an agentic person, and making that identity a pillar of who we are. Just for any like people who are certainly not morning people, is definitely a part of my identity that I had considered for years and years. I remember maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I thought, do you know what? There's a lot of time I'm burning in bed in the mornings. Like, sure, it's great that I'm getting 9 or 10 hours of sleep. That's not actually necessary. And like, I want to build this new life for myself. So I effectively set the alarm for 6:30. I initially realized that was actually too early. I psychologically couldn't do it. But 7:00, I work remotely. So then it just basically, I told myself, do you know what? Screw it. Like, you identify as someone who's not a morning person, but actually there's a lot of time you could be using there for going to the gym, doing your projects, or anything like that. But by doing it, by starting to do it, that was what did it for me. It was repeatedly doing the doing, which was getting up when the alarm goes off. Don't snooze it, just crack on. And in days when I go to the gym, I feel awesome. On days when I've done some projects, like right now, I'm recording this pre-work, which feels awesome. So yeah, doing the doing, it's important.
Sweet as, that's awesome. Step 4, consider a done list. This is kind of a bit like a to-do list, but the focus is on the celebration of ticking the things off and celebrating the wins, not just writing down as many tasks as possible and then, sort of whipping yourself for not having done them all. Just as we can overexpose ourselves to realities different than our own and material successes greater than our own through social media, we also are able to draw the mind's eye away from all the things that we have done and focus on those that we haven't. So make a point of celebrating our own successes. Mark a weekly time slot on your calendar to tick off, celebrate, and reflect on what you've done. Turn up to this session and present your work to you. This will feel alien and awkward, but only if you've not done the work. The more agentic you become, the less daunting these review time slots will be.
On this one, I think probably more than everything I really agree with. Like, it's something that like a number of years ago, I was working on a startup called Halo Soaps with my friend. Every Wednesday we'd come together and we'd discuss what we had done and what we were going to do. So after a couple of years, sadly he left and I was like kind of left holding the bag by myself. But I continued the tradition, which was to create that list of what I'd done and what I was going to do. And every Wednesday evening, I would effectively have a meeting with myself, which is to celebrate. Yeah, celebrate. Okay, yeah, you've made some good progress. You've done some really good things here. But also as a way to create accountability for future me, so that I knew in a week's time, 7 days' time, I would have a look back at my previous list and say, awesome, those are all of my done. Or perhaps
Yeah,
not all of
cool.
them are, but it definitely reinforces accountability as well as that celebratory side of things. And yeah, it's important because we do a lot of things in our days and it's very easy to forget what happened 7 days ago. So yeah, it really helped me.
Nice. Good. And so step 5 is get out of your own way. Specifically, this is a bit of an aside from the research I was looking up on happiness, in which one of the polling companies, YouGov, repeatedly asked for years and years now whether or not their participants feel energized. And the survey respondents in the UK, it's about 22% of survey respondents report feeling energized. So get out of your own way and don't wait to start until you're feeling energized. 78% of us are some degree of tired all the time. You can't wait until you're not tired to do something important.
Amen. Yeah, totally agree. It's very easy to have things like imposter syndrome or to just find excuses for not starting.
Yeah.
But I would tell you, like, having a degree of momentum, whether it's just taking like the very basic first step, half an hour of doing something, that is a total game changer. So yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah, good
Get out
man.
of your own way.
Do you want to bring this episode into land? Do you want to tell people what they can expect from us next?
I will try to remember. So yes, I might have to pass this back to you. It's about AI.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the AI imperative towards entrepreneurship and some important AI reframes to help you through this turbulent time as we go through the AI transition and how we can help you to win it.